When auli'i was first cast as Moana, the Walt Disney Company was in a very different place. They were on a string of major successes and were on the cusp of creating the most popular princess they had ever conceived. But my oh my, how times change. And for both, the Walt Disney Company now is looking at trying to salvage where they are, trying to fend off Nelson Peltz and Elon Musk. And how are they doing that? Well, amidst losses in the millions of subscribers, the Disney Company pulled the Moana card. But it's a major risk, and we'll tell you why right now. Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel, the apex of explanations when it comes to entertainment. We keep you ahead of the culture curve. We love doing so. Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for That Park Place, is back
Good
with
morning.
Jonas. Good morning.
So good to be here. I was just considering a rewatch of Atlantis Milo's Return.
Well, that may be what we're getting when it comes to Moana 2. This might be the DuckTales movie. We'll explain that in a moment, but we need to provide context. Why did Disney need to announce Moana 2 the way that they did? Here's why, folks. This out of Variety by Jennifer Mass. Disney Plus drops 1.3 million subscribers amid price hike. Streaming loss shrinks by $300 million. Now, the first half of that is good. Shockingly, the second half of that is bad, even though it looks like it's good. We'll explain in just a moment. Here's the article. Disney Plus lost 1.3 million subscribers in the final quarter. Again, folks, 1.3 million subscribers in 3 months. Amid a hefty price hike that went into effect last fall, but managed to narrow its streaming business losses by $300 million during the October to December period. Let's explain how they did so. This is why this is bad. They managed to narrow the streaming business's losses by $300 million because they could not spend any money on churn. They couldn't spend any money on stuff being produced because that was during the strikes. So it's an artificial reduction. Jonas, is that fair, you think?
No, I think that's fair. Now, I will add here that they are going to have a non-artificial reduction this coming year. They're talking about spending even less on content than the year that they had those strikes.
That is correct. And so this is an absolute culling of content. And that's also why moving Moana from what this is Moana was a TV show. And now they're going to retrofit that again. We're on repeat, folks. This is number 3 now. So the first one was Mandalorian, then Lilo and Stitch, now Moana, TV shows that they are changing into movies. And
yes,
TV shows are usually not made at the same quality as movies. So that causes me pause. It gives me a little concern.
Well,
but Jonas,
yes,
it also helps them reduce the expenditure on Disney Plus because that gets moved into a new bracket now, right?
Right. Baymax comes to mind, as well as Zootopia Plus. Zootopia Plus, it was fine. The animation, or at least the look of it, was still there, but it was very forgettable. And Baymax, you can go check out my Everything Woke channel if you want to find out what happened with Baymax.
Right. Well, let's just say we'll get into the Moana part in just a moment because this is a major risk that Disney is doing. There's going to be a lot of applause today for it, but we're here to tell you the truth. Disney Plus core subscribers, which include U.S. and Canada customers, i.e. their highest profit margins, dropped to 111.3 million from 112.6 million reported in the previous quarter, according to Disney's quarterly earnings results released Wednesday. In its financials, which cover the Mouse House's first quarter for its fiscal year 2024, Disney projects adding between 5.5 million and 6 million subscribers to Disney Plus Core by the end of its current quarter, which runs January to March. But I don't know why that would be, other than, Jonas, they're adding automatically individuals from Charter now. And so if you have a Charter subscription, you're going to get tagged with a Disney Plus subscription.
Yes, they did say this on the call that they will also be adding funding from that into the they'll be taking some of the money they'll be receiving from Charter in the form of carriage fees and applying it towards Disney Plus. So I think that they might take a hit on linear here, but that'll serve their narrative that linear is dying. They'll have to put it towards streaming, and they'll get to choose how much money they get to put in their average revenue per user, which is a metric we won't contemplate too much here, but it's important for Wall Street.
But all of that said, we think that this was an awful quarter for Disney. And I don't see much reason to see that this coming quarter is greatly better. But we have to admit that if you had an awful, awful, awful quarter, that you could not make one look better than Disney did yesterday. And that partially or significantly was made available to Disney because in the question and answer session, they didn't have to answer any questions that had any real critical look into this sort of thing, because I see this company on the ropes, and for whatever reason, the institutionalists, the journalists who called in, they didn't ask peering questions into what's happening. They threw up major softballs. Only one question had any kind of heat to it. And so Bob Iger and Hugh Johnston, they managed to skate right on through yesterday with these sorts of they're not illegal things they did. I don't even know that they're unethical, but it's making the company look a lot better than I think the company is right now. Jonas, your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think that it was a vaguely boring call, except for those who knew where they were already kind of obfuscating a little bit.
Now, that said, Jonas, I suspect, although we're not here to give financial advice, I think in the short term, the stock is going to bounce because you're going to have people who are not paying close attention to this, hearing stuff such as, that they're cutting their losses on Disney Plus. Password crackdowns are coming. And I'm looking at this and saying, well, you lost 1 million subscribers. You're going to add new subscribers, but all of those are just people who have no interest in you. You're just adding them because they have a charter subscription, and you're going to cut down on passwords. You're going to increase the prices. They said that as well, although maybe not in this quarter. I don't see why they're going to maintain huge growth in subscriber numbers. I don't see how they're going to hit those milestones they want. So,
well, the question I have here is obviously when we look at Hulu, which is a healthy streaming service, there is a subscription model, and then on top of those subscriptions, there are ads, and those ads are the revenue from Hulu is more than the price of a subscription because the ads are subsidizing those average revenues per user. So if you're getting a bunch of people onto Disney Plus who are being they're being charged for it through charter, unaware, but they're not actually watching the service, that reduces the effectiveness of those ads. So this creates a big question for me as to how they're going to sell the ads and, of course, how much money the ads will actually make if they're not hitting anyone's eyeballs.
Now, all that said, Jonas, Disney's strategy going into this was clearly to inundate folks with announcements and to prep the entire call with positivity, and we can't blame them for that. That's a great strategy. When you have a bad quarter and you cannot live on the positivity of your actual success, throw the future at the folks, at the investors, and say, look at what's coming. It's shiny, it's great. And like putting lipstick on a rabid pig, we had the announcement about Fortnite, which we think is a really good deal for Disney. I mean, that's a home run for Disney. The back end of that might be worth analysis, and we'll have that for you tomorrow, folks. But one of the other announcements they made was Moana 2. And this is a movie, Jonas, that I've heard was needed to be in development for a long time. I've been covering this. I think we had a rumor last year that Moana 2 was coming. But the way they're doing Moana 2 causes me tremendous worry for this, and I'll tell you why. Moana is by far and away the most popular princess that Disney has. It's not Tangled, it's not Frozen, and it's not close.
Yes,
Moana,
away.
Yes, well played. Moana is, hey, now watch what you're doing. Moana is the most popular princess that Disney has. And Moana, if you put out a good Moana film, is worth $1.5 billion. All you have to do is put out a good Moana film. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be excellent. Just put out a good one, and you'll get $1.5 billion. What they did, though, in order, I believe, to fend off Nelson Peltz, is they announced a new film out of nowhere for November, and this is going to be a Moana sequel, which has some very real reasons to be worried. Reason number one, of course, is that this is a TV show that they're going to change into a movie. And as we said, TV shows are usually not made at the quality of a movie. But also, there are some connections here. The people behind this, I think, give us real pause about the ability of this film to do well. Jonas is going to break that down in a moment, but first, the article. Moana 2 is happening in November, Disney's Bob Iger says. This by Anthony D'Alessandro out of Deadline. Disney boss Bob Iger announced today that Moana 2 is coming out as a feature this November. Iger exclaimed the news in a CNBC interview before the studio's Q1 earnings, again, prepping that call with positivity for the future but not the present, on how the studio was turning a Moana TV series into a feature sequel. This despite the fact that a live-action version with Dwayne Johnson reprising his role of Maui from the original 2016 film is also planned for a theatrical release on June 27th, 2025, which goes to show you how popular this is and how desperate they are. Note that Disney books the Thanksgiving 5-day Wednesday to Sunday stretch with an animated movie annually. It always had a November 27th release date set for a Toon feature. Moana remains an incredibly popular franchise, said Iger, and we can't wait to give you more of Moana and Maui when Moana 2 comes to theaters this November. Jonas, there are connections here, though, that give us real worry that the people who made the original Moana are not there, and the people who are there now, well, they've got some problems. I'm gonna throw one producer at you, then I want you to throw some names. Producer number one is Jennifer Lee, who just came off of Wish, and Wish was an abomination. Yeah, Jennifer Lee behind Moana now.
Yep. There's been a slow decline at the Walt Disney Company. Just to be clear, Moana, the first one came out in, I want to say 2016, which would be very firmly in that John Lasseter era at Walt Disney Animation. And he was notorious for sending things back that were not quite ready for that Disney magic. Again, the Disney Company makes films that need to last for 100 years or more, depending on how long the company ends up lasting. I'm not trying to say they're going bankrupt here, but if they keep making decisions like this, they're going to need another renaissance. Moana was 2016, and the director on this is Mr. David G. Derrick, and this is his first...
On the second one.
Yes, the director on the first one was Ron Clements and John Musker, also Don Hall. Those being animation legends. Clements and Musker.
And none of them are working on this, to our knowledge.
No. Jared Bush, who wrote the first one, he's over there working on the live action version, which we don't even necessarily need to go into the bizarre idea that they're making the animated sequel and the live action remake at the same time.
And that the live action sequel is based on a zany TV show premise that we'll get into in just a moment. Yes.
The man in charge of this film, Moana 2, is David G. Derrick. And this would be his first feature directorial, debut, however you want to phrase it. But his previous job, his highest ranking job at the Walt Disney Studio, was head of story for Strange World. Which
Jonas, how did Strange World do, both culturally and at the box office?
Abysmal. It is somehow, I think Wish actually did outdo it at the box office. It was during the pandemic, but it was, well...
No, it's not during the pandemic.
It was past,
it fails all on its own.
It was past the pandemic, but if Wish didn't come out, it would be very easy to say that Strange World is the worst thing that Disney Animation has ever done. It's just not a good film. It's very heavy on the messaging. It's very light on the engaging characters, and it's frankly just a very bizarrely written environmental allegory that really doesn't make sense when it comes down to it.
So let me see if I've got my head wrapped around this for the audience. You're telling me that the guy who was head of story over one of Disney's biggest failures ever, that he is now the director for the first time ever. He's never been a director before. He is the director over Moana 2, which is their biggest franchise. This is a massive movie for them. It's his first time ever as a director. And he really wasn't supposed to be directing a movie. He was supposed to be directing a zany TV show. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. And the threshold for Disney Plus, they release a lot of low-grade babysitter content onto that platform. The Spark Short series comes to mind, where most of these shorts would not have been made if they actually had to be marketable in some way. The Pixar Popcorn series is the leavings of Pixar movies that they either don't have the actual voice actors, or they're taking outtakes from Key and Peele from Toy Story 4 and repurposing them into shorts. So this sounds like they're being very resourceful, maybe a little too resourceful. They're trying to MacGyver this thing into a feature release because they have an open slot at the end of the year and they only have 3 theatrical movies. Now, of course, we did notice on the earnings call that all of a sudden Fox properties are being focused the same way that Disney properties are being focused on, that being Pixar, Disney, and Marvel. So I'm not trying to say that that's an indication of the decline of the company. I'm just saying they usually have a deep bench here. They have the movie and the sequel already in mind, and now they're struggling to come up with things to talk about. But they talk about them real big, and they got that clipboard in their hand as they're waving and trying to get past security.
They've got 10 months. They've got 10 months, Jonas, to get this thing made.
Now,
as of right now,
I want to talk about 2 things that are missing from this film.
First, let me tell you one thing that's missing real quick, because that's where I was going, and then you've got things that might be bigger. But in 10 months, they've got to have this movie out. My sources that I have been scrambling to reach out to over the last 12 hours, I guess, say Lin-Manuel Miranda is not attached to this at all.
He is not.
That is a huge miss. And
yes,
they don't have time. He needs to be hired tomorrow. This is the kind of movie he needs to be hired tomorrow.
Yeah, it's only a day away. The Lin-Manuel Miranda is the reason that this film hit in so many ways. It's the reason a lot of people showed up. When you think about You're Welcome or Shiny or the song at the beginning of the film, the I Want song, which is actually the father's I want you to stay here song.
Lin-Manuel Miranda has
all of
been
that is Lin-Manuel Miranda.
He's been responsible for basically the last 2 hyper successful Disney films. I mean, Encanto would not have done anything without him being the man behind the scenes on the music.
Right now,
the idea that you would do a Moana sequel without him is crazy.
Yeah, it looks like today or late yesterday they confirmed that Auli'i Fo'ai is returning, which that's great. And Mark Mancina, they worked on the original film, but Lin-Manuel Miranda is being replaced with Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear.
No, this is a horrible idea, and it's because it was a TV show. You don't hire Lin-Manuel Miranda to do your little Disney Plus TV show. So these songs are already in the can, and you can't do this. I mean, listen, here's the deal, and then I want to get your because you have some real insight. I'm a fan of the Moana film because it's excellent. I'm a fan of Disney when it's excellent. This franchise is one of their last remaining pristine franchises that can drive so much money for this company. And so as someone who wants this company to be redeemed, I'm looking at this and saying, this is a massive risk. On the one hand, they might throw a Hail Mary and win with this. Have a first-time director under a producer who just had the biggest animated flop of all time. And they might manage to do something great. And we'll all be shocked, and I'll praise this and say, I can't believe it. Bob Iger pulled it off. And we'll be fair with that. But the risk here is that you're not putting the A-listers behind this project. And again, this is the big kahuna when it comes to what you have available in your franchise roster. Don't damage this franchise, Disney. Do not. This is Star Wars level when it comes to little girls. Don't damage this. Jonas, what else do you have that we all need to know?
Well, there's of course that this is not being animated by the original Disney animated studio. This is a outsourced production in some way. You know how we talk about Sony Pictures Animation pretty much farming everything out, or the fact that DreamWorks is able to produce films so much more cheaply, so much more inexpensively, I'll say, because they have made some good work over the last few years, especially. Super Mario Brothers, for instance, is animated in France. Well, this is all being done at Walt Disney Animation Studios, Vancouver, which is a very, I'm not saying that the people who live in Vancouver aren't capable artists, but they don't have the history there. And this is a new studio that has not had this much pressure put on them in the past. Their previous outings, well, I think this might actually be their first production. I don't quote me on that. This is the first production from them that I'm aware of. This is a fresh studio, and if this does well, then I think that might be a death knell for the California studio. And if this does poorly, well, I think that's actually kind of what we're expecting here at this point.
I hope not. I'm being honest. When this company turns around, it's got to have something. And there's going to be a lot of excitement for Moana 2. But I fear that they do not have the team behind the scenes to to make what was Moana. And when you talk about retrofitting a TV show, and I'm going to give the premise now to this, folks. So this is what I'm hearing about this, that Moana 2, based on the TV show, that here's what it's going to be. It's going to be Moana and Maui on another adventure. And like Lightyear, because it was for a TV show, they have a zany cast of rapscallions who are with them, a group of misfits that they tag along, and Maui and Moana have to put up with them and learn a lesson about taking care of others. And that's the story. It's sort of a story of being stuck with ineptitude and finding the special that's inside each one of us. It's like a weird, warped original Lego movie. But that's the film's premise, because this was supposed to play out over episodes and have goofy gags and all of that. And now that, I don't know how they're going to turn that into a movie, but I don't want. I mean, I don't think audiences are going to want Moana and Maui stuck with a ragtag group of lesser thans that they have to learn how to put up with, because we already saw that in Lightyear, and I don't think that works on the big screen.
The point that I was going to talk about was the cast, but when I realized that if they want people from, they used a lot of people from Oceania, Zealandia, depending on how you classify the Australian continent. If they can bring back Rachel House, I think they are bringing back Tamara Morrison, who's of course Boba Fett. He's amazing. Jermaine Clement for a voice role, that would be amazing. But then I remembered, if they bring in Taika Waititi, who was originally attached to the first Moana, and then for some reason left the project, he doesn't even really claim it. He says, "Yes, I didn't have much to do with that." But if they do that, then they will be essentially using the same plot as Lightyear, in which Taika Waititi played a guy who was part of the ragtag group of people who had to learn to be an effective team by the end of the film. Kind of debatable if they did. I put most of that on Izzy, what's her name, and Lightyear, that actually saved the day. By the way, that brave space ranger Izzy is the one who saves the day in that one, not Buzz.
And by the way, folks, on the screen, you can see the ragtag group on the ship with Moana and Maui in the background. So that's what we're getting, and we're not here to dump on Moana 2. We're here to say that if it's done well, if it's done right, this is a $1 to $1.5 billion win for Disney, and they desperately needed the box office. If they don't put the right people behind this, and if they use a TV show and their most popular girls franchise to save their butts and try to stop Nelson Peltz this year from getting the win in the proxy fight, then they're morons. They are short-sighted morons, and they'll destroy one of their greatest revenue opportunities out there. Also, there is the interesting part of this that Inside Out 2 actually could play a significant role in how this does, Jonas, because Inside Out 2, coming out in June, if it's filled with a bunch of wokeness, if anxiety, is a character that we're supposed to love by the end of the film, then that's going to make parents and families look twice at Moana 2, which is a Herculean failure if Disney manages to make families look twice at Moana 2. But Inside Out 2 could do that.
And there is, of course, the other aspect of a lot of that Disney Plus content has been more progressive than the things they've put on main screens, because it has less of a profit incentive to succeed. And so they're willing to take more risks on Disney Plus, and not necessarily bold creative choices, but rather bold messaging choices.
Right. So, folks, that's where we are right now. We are going to be bringing out far more analysis when it comes to the Walt Disney Company and what this earnings report meant. It was one of the most bizarre earning calls I have ever watched, not because Bob Iger lost his cool this time, but rather because this was a horrible quarter for the Walt Disney Company, and yet they dressed it up in the most fantastic way possible, even to the point, Jonas, that there was a place, we might talk about this in another video, but we'll bring it up here. There was a point where they bragged about a video game being the #1 video game of the year, a Spider-Man game, which Disney had nothing to do with, and which was not the #1 video game in the world. So it was like, well, that's wrong on every account possible. Will investors notice that? Will they be held accountable? I don't think so. But the issue here, Jonas, is that you can only live on that sort of thing for so long before the bubble bursts. And that's what I worry, is that they are selling out their long-term dramatically. to try to stop Nelson Peltz from correcting them in the short term. Jonas, give us your final thoughts on all of this and the strategy that Disney had yesterday.
Well, I wish that Vancouver studio and this budding director here the best of luck. I really do hope that you create an amazing film. You mentioned the DuckTales movie. I love the DuckTales movie. I think it's
I do too.
Good enough that they aped most of the story beats when they made Aladdin, by the way. Or, if this is another Disney Toon animation, the Goofy movie did come out of Disney Toon animation or Movie Tunes or whatever name they were going by at the time that the Goofy movies came out. Those were stories that stood the test of time. But I would say that the Goofy movie is very entrenched in traditional values and a strong father-son relationship. If you are in charge of this movie right now and you are thinking about, oh, well, the message needs to be, it was the friends we made along the way. There's a lot of that going around right now. That's maybe not where you need to go. If you want to bring it back to those core resonant values that have been present in most of Disney's successes, go there. Throw everything else out if you don't have something that's going to resonate with everybody. If you've got a TV show plot about the ragtag group,
right. We're here to tell you, Disney, you need to put every person behind this who is the best that you have, because you need to make this franchise be one that's sustained. This can make $1.5 billion later this year. And if it's good, and if it does that, we'll praise you for doing so. But if you destroy this franchise because you wanted to stop Nelson Peltz, and so you threw a bunch of ragtag of your own constituents into making this film that was originally a TV show, then we're going to rag on you for a very long time, because that's idiocy. And we hope that you're not going to do that. Please.
Well, sorry, I just have to throw this in here. Okay, Nelson Peltz is one thing, but they're going to be ceding ground to DreamWorks and Illumination if they do this poorly.
Right.
More importantly, the damage is to the studio more than Nelson Peltz coming in and coming in and changing the tenor of the board. They will be giving up even more market share to a scrappier company that is willing to outfight them and is more lean right now. The bloat at Disney is their problem right now, and the fact that they had an extra animated movie to repurpose speaks to some of that bloat. Maybe they should have just not done a movie this November. The word around was that Lilo and Stitch, the live action Disney Plus movie, was going to take this spot. So, guys, just please use some intentionality and maybe hire in some creatives that'll push back on you.
Let's think about it this way. The new Despicable Me movie was probably going to be the biggest grossing film of the year. Now, one would anticipate that Moana 2 is the biggest grossing film of the year. So Disney, you've got the biggest grossing film of the year. If you just don't screw it up. Hire Lin-Manuel tomorrow. The director, fine, but go get those who were the directors on Moana 1 and bring them in for consultants immediately. Do not do what you did to Star Wars, which is to say, oh, here's Star Wars, people will watch it no matter what's in it. Slap Star Wars on there and kick it out in theaters and let's make some money. Don't do that again. It fails miserably. If
anyone's got that lobotomy half-shave haircut, go change the model right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right, folks. We hope you have had a collision course with excellence here on the video today, learning things that you did not know before, because we do the homework overnight. We talk to the sources. We find out what's really going on behind the scenes. That's how we keep you ahead of the culture curve. And if you enjoy content like that, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you do indeed stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts and what you think is going to happen with this film. Will Disney put the absolute best effort behind it, save the day, and get the top grossing film of 2024, as they should with this property? Or will they kick a squib and miss the easy field goal by putting people behind this who are propagandistic and who have failed miserably in the past? Let's find out. It's going to be interesting to see. It also has a major impact on the proxy battle, and we'll be covering all of that over the next 48 to 72 hours. A story about Leslie Headland, Star Wars, and an attempt to destroy Gina Carano coming out later today, folks. You do not want to miss it. wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, keep having fun, and go check out That Park Place live at noon Eastern.
It's good.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Cuz you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?